Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the Wellness Gala free online series, Take Care of Yourself. My name is Lee Grabarczyk of SoulfulMandalas.com. I'm an intuitive channel who creates sacred geometry to enhance awareness. So tonight, we talk about boundaries, especially with the COVID virus. People, all sequestered, one on top of one another. It's a way of bringing these issues up. And for me, I think it's really such an important discussion. Boundaries really reveal how I feel about myself. There's two big things I'd like to start with before we get into it. And one is the importance of self-awareness and self-esteem. So self-awareness is really looking at what it is that I like, what it is that works for me, what it is that honors me. And I mean this without any kind of vanity or any kind of imperiousness or arrogance. What is it that really is important to my well-being? And part of that requires a certain amount of self-reflection. And the other one that can be seen in this is self-esteem. Self-esteem is so much a part of how it is that I view myself and how it is that I feel I should be treated. How it is that I look at my worth, how much do I matter? And in how it is that I let myself be treated is a good indication of how I feel about myself. So we're just going to kind of think about this in terms of, we'll use like a metaphor of a garden here. So I'm going to just imagine this most beautiful garden, your garden, right? This garden is unlike any other garden in the entire multiverse. It has unique flowers. It has unique plants that have nutritional content that can't be found anywhere else. It has a certain kind of medicinal quality that can't be found anywhere else. It has a self-expression and a kind of beauty that can't be found anywhere else. This garden, this magnificent expression, is really you. Every single person has within themselves a unique standpoint, a unique offering, unlike anything else, unlike anything that has ever existed. And within that beautiful garden is where we start attending to our own needs, where we look at this garden and what it has to offer in a way that celebrates its identity. Maybe it's something that's a little different, but maybe that particular difference is what it is that really honors the universe, because it probably does. Everything that exists within consciousness as we come into our reality, basically when we come into this world, is there out of some great learning and great offering to everyone, including us. So here it is, I have this beautiful garden, and I'm just so grooving on it. But then I have bad experiences. I've got people who tell me, that garden isn't very good. My garden's better. I have a great garden. Your garden has too many of these plants. My garden has this kind of plant. My garden has a better kind of PR program. And so for those of us who maybe had a more challenging childhood, when we're looking at ourselves and we're looking at our own offerings, there's a tendency to maybe disregard some of our value. And we get people in our lives, maybe it's an authority figure, it could be a family member, it could be anybody, who says, I know what to do and you don't. Instead of co-creating and making it be some kind of partnership, they're looking at from a state of dominance. So this is really at the very heart of the kind of narcissism, I would call it, that people have to contend with when they're establishing boundaries. When I am in a state of questioning, let's say that I'm not really sure about something, or maybe because of my own wounded background, or maybe some kind of childhood trauma, I may not feel very secure in what it is that I'm presenting. And somebody else may have also had a certain kind of trauma, but their reaction is to be, I'm always right. And when they act like they're always right, when they're actually operating from this perspective that they're always right, and they keep drilling that and drilling that and drilling that and drilling that into consciousness, there's a feeling of, well, maybe they are. But really what they want in narcissism, what they want is a reaction. Narcissists have a tendency, people who violate boundaries basically, have a tendency to want to get a reaction, so they feel a sense of being alive, being in existence, having an impact. I want to make a difference in the world, all of that stuff. They start rallying around these ideas in such a way that can be very self-centered and destructive. Yet, for those of us who may have felt more inadequate, we rally around that because we're promised that if we do this, we're going to get something back. That person will bestow on us all of their magnificence. That they're going to somehow or another give us this thing that we so much want because they seem to have so much of it and they're so secure in it that they're going to give it to us and it'll be all great. No. Every time that I give my power up to a person who I think, this is for narcissism, this isn't somebody that I've hired, this isn't like therapy or something where the relationship's been established with boundaries, everything's cool. This is those people who are seeking to take advantage of me. When I give them my power, I end up losing the thing that I want because they take that. So let's say, for example, it has to do with money. I attach myself to money. What they do, they end up exploiting me. They end up taking advantage of the fact that I don't feel maybe worthy, and they do, so I give them my money, and then they're supposed to help me, and then they don't. Money could be time, it could be energy, it could be anything. So they're feeding off of the energy of us. And really one of the best ways to know if you're dealing with someone who's violating your boundaries, or a narcissist in particular, narcissism, to address this issue, is to simply, when they're doing something, particularly these things that are completely unreasonable, maybe it's a long-standing issue, is to say no, no, and watch what they do. Their reaction is a tell. How they respond to it says a great deal. Are they magnanimous about it, or are they all defensive about it? And in their defensiveness is the truth of where they really stand. In the garden, as I'm describing it, is what I need to nurture. And my feelings are definitely connected to my boundaries. Meaning that what I'm feeling about my life, what is feeling as an empowering thing, where I feel like, yeah, I can do this, this is great, or I can accomplish that goal, no problem. That means that I'm honoring my boundaries because I'm doing the things that I can handle, I'm doing the things that honor me, and I'm not giving my energy to someone who disrespects me or who takes advantage of me. No matter what kind of, how they portray it, the feeling state that I'm left with when I'm in the company of somebody else who is taking my energy, who's kind of robbing it, is a feeling of exhaustion, tiredness, of frustration, hopelessness, depression. All of those feeling states come in because that person is just there to take it away. But when I'm looking back at what it is that I need, and maybe I reframe this in a healthier way, where I'm, co-creating with somebody, and I said, you know what, this is what I want to do here. You want to do that? Fine. We coordinate that way. That's different. But when I give my power to somebody, that's a problem. And there is within the neediness or codependency of people who may have felt inadequate, there is a predisposition towards attracting people who would take advantage, narcissists, because the caregiver, right, wants to kind of give the energy to the person as a way of feeling better. Part of that caregiving nature and part of that neediness could be saying the phrase, confusing love with neediness, pity and or the need to rescue or be rescued. And that kind of like betrayal of self, right, actually then puts all of the energy into the other person and doesn't really reflect back on self. That's why self-reflection and checking with emotions is just so damn critical. Because if I'm not really looking at what it is that's going on for me, I'm flying blind and I'm not aware of how to attend to my own needs because I'm not noticing the feeling states that come from my own self-care. Because when I'm in that state of self-care, self-expression, authenticity, alignment, source energy, whatever you want to call it, that's when I feel empowered. Now I'm ready to go. But otherwise, if I'm putting it into something that is being taken advantage of or abused or etc., or because I'm not in I'm in a state of fear and I'm not able to maybe contend with it in such a way, then at least I can look at that and address it at a later point. So emotions and boundaries go hand in hand. And it's not just the fact that I don't let people violate the boundaries on me. I don't violate their boundaries. So the person who let's use the idea of the garden, a person comes into the garden, they start, I want to move that thing over there, and why are you doing that over there, and why, the light comes in over here, you should do that over there. All of those kinds of thoughts may be appropriate to them, but not appropriate to me. And if I don't ask people for that kind of suggestion, and they start imposing it on me as a way of projecting their power, as a way of dominating and getting a sense of personal strength at expense of what it is that I want to do for myself, then it's up for me to say, you know what, that doesn't work for me. That isn't something that I want to have happen here. I need to take care of that garden because I know experientially that those things work and that those feeling states that come from that garden being tended to and loved have such a great result for me. Because really all of this idea of self as a garden is to just celebrate its unique aspects and love them. Love them for what they are, love them in their unique qualities. And to do so without apology because everybody's different. This isn't some kind of purposeful contrariness. This is I'm just recognizing my authentic voice and I'm expressing it joyfully. I'm saying that this is who I am and this is what I'm about. And out of that alignment, I then become celebratory of myself and attract energetically positive energy and become, of sorts, a leader. But not leading by domination, not leading by some kind of control or trying to disempower other people as a way of feeling powerful. Truly powerful people, and I've said this before, are those that empower others. But when I'm really celebrating myself, I become popular. I set a trend. The thing that nobody else really thought much of, I really love it. And when I love it, I give it a voice. And when I give it a voice, it becomes radiant. It becomes a joyful noise. And that part of it is really at the heart of that self-discovery that comes from letting go of trying to get other people to do the work that only I can do for myself by putting boundaries between myself and those narcissists or other people who may take advantage of me. And narcissism has many different kinds of ways of expressing itself. Narcissism could be the person who is always right and never wrong. And if they're wrong and they're called out, they lie. So there's just no way to win, right? They're always kind of trying to say, you need to do the following things or you can't. Well, there's many ways to do stuff. And the other kind of narcissism is the victim. The victim that has created a sense of chaos and craziness in their life and seeks others to rescue them constantly. And I'm sure you have people like this in your life. There's always a problem. There's always some kind of issue. There's always some kind of craziness. And it's very energy vampire. And the key is to create the boundaries so that those people don't get into this habit of doing it. But when we're established in a particular modality, when I'm doing, my life and I'm, presenting the way ever I present, I establish a dynamic of what it is that's expected. In other words, I project the energy to the people that I'm with in a way that they kind of get where I'm coming from. And for narcissists, very good. Even predators smell. They know the weakness. They can smell it on a person. And that to them is, that's how they know that they can go for that. But when I'm really coming from my sense of confidence, that's a whole different thing. But the exhaustion that comes from these relationships eventually comes to a head. And if I'm in touch with my feelings, if I'm really recognizing like, wow, every time that I see blank, I feel like death. Or every time that, I get so angry when they call me at 1 o'clock in the morning with this stuff and it doesn't really make any sense. Or they continue to hit me up for all of these things that they want from me. And I told them no, and they just, anyway. But when we get into these kinds of things, then it's really important to reframe the relationship. And reframing a relationship is hard work, I think. I'll call it challenging. We'll make that seem more positive. But it is very, very difficult if I've always been presenting a certain way to then say, I know I've done it for 10 years, but I'm done. I can't do it anymore. That is it, right? So if I am in a relationship and I'm getting this constant intel that something's bothering me, that I can feel it. I can feel it in my, emotions are very visceral. They're messy, which is part of the fun of them. They don't really fit, they're kind of into neat little description. They've got all sorts of dimension to them. But when they're not being addressed, they have a way of letting themselves be known. I very, very much was told, I love this phrase, I was told this many years ago, an unexpressed emotion is like a covert terrorist. It does whatever it needs to find its outlet. Could be body level, could be arthritis, it could be some kind of, maybe I get into a fall down, I trip on something, or maybe there's some other kind of issue because my emotions that are not being expressed are distracting me in a way that causes me to make a mistake that could result in something that could be hurtful to my well-being. Or maybe it's just the energy that's not being expressed outwardly that's also causing a resonance within the consciousness or within the body that then manifests an illness. And usually the illness is a metaphor for whatever it is I need to address. So those kinds of moments are really, really, can be very challenging. And they kind of start putting into motion a feeling of, as I'm doing them, like, wow, I'm finally doing this. This feels pretty good. And then in the process of the conversation that I have with the other person, I get to express to them what it is that I'm feeling about this in a way that they may not have gotten. And then we can have a decision from that, what we want to do going forward. Either they get it or they don't. The most important thing for me is not whether or not a person gets it. I mean, people will, some people are just, it doesn't matter what I do, they're just not going to get it. And that's their right, if they don't want to hear it, that's fine, that they don't want to hear it. But in those relationships, that gives me an indication of I'm going to expect. So I'm basically going to continue to get the same result that I have with them because they are not willing to listen to what I have to say, or they're not deferential to my well-being. They're still going to continue to be whatever they've been that may have been harmful to me. And if I stay in that relationship, that's what I'm going to get. So, so I can basically say, what, we need to limit this. We need to put this into a smaller context. We're going to revisit this. And then from doing that, I start becoming my own advocate. Part of the great thing about boundaries and what they really show is what is it that I need to take care of in myself? For example, if I really feel that I need to be outgoing and powerful and expressive, I'm going to find these people who are very expressive and they're very vocal. What happens is that they end up picking on me. I need to find that within myself. And granted, maybe in some of the crucible of these relationships, it fosters that from example. Maybe I learned from it. But chances are, if they want to continue to be dominant in that way, maybe they're verbally assertive in a way that hurts me. Maybe they're mean-spirited. Then if I continue to do that, that is what I'm going to continue to maintain as my identity. And ultimately, it's really my decision to do that. And in that, I violate my own boundary. People make such a fuss about betrayal. Oh, my goodness. I can't believe my ex betrayed me. I can't believe my partner betrayed me. I can't believe my friend betrayed me. But what about when we betray ourselves? What about when we do the kinds of things that we know that we are hurting us? And I don't mean to be cruel about this either, and I don't mean to in any way make this about judgment about it, but this is something to notice. This is something to see. I love the Pope John phrase, notice everything, overlook a great deal, correct a little, a little. It's all that's necessary. One little step. It all begins with one step. What's Lao Tzu? A 1,000-mile journey begins with a single step. And when we're looking at our relationships and we're looking at people who violate our boundaries, we're looking at where we give our power. We look at where we, sacrifice ourselves, thinking that somehow they'll notice us and give us a bone. They'll throw us some kind of interest. And then we say, wait a second, that hasn't worked. I need to now make myself the focus. I need to make myself the star of my own life. I need to attend to my garden. I need to look at the beauty that's in there and celebrate that as a unique identity, unlike anything else in the universe, and really own that. Because I believe that when that happens, that garden, that self, that consciousness, the spirit of my own identity, my soul self, whatever you want to call it, shines brightly. And it shines so brightly and so beautifully that all I can feel is the love that comes from my own care for myself radiating back to me. And not only in the radiating back to me in the garden space, but radiating back to me by the context that I've established for myself in my life that says that I am deserving of love and respect. Full stop. No other thing. I don't need to justify or argue for it. I don't have to defend it. I don't have to work for it or earn it or all that. It is given to me freely because it's the truth of the spirit of me and everybody else. And operating from that standpoint celebrates everybody else's unique perspective and collectively energizes the universe in a way that allows for more opportunities for success and less dogmatic viewpoints that are divisive, that create conflict and tension and judgment. So that's it for tonight. Thank you for watching me on the Wellness Gala free series. Take care of yourself. Please visit wellnessgala.com for more information and stay well. And next week, we'll get into a little topic called intimacy. Thanks, everyone. Have a great night.